process goals are the most important ones. It's like, okay, 8+ hours of sleep a night. It's okay, I'm doing my rehab, prehab like every day or every other day. It's like very time specific, measurable, process oriented goals that, like you said, at the end of the day.
Excellence is about standing, and excellence is a requirement for your dream to come true.
I was in 6th grade. A soccer coach of mine like saw some speed and was like, well, you should try out track and field. You should try out cross country, see how you like it. So yeah, started running in cross country races. Really loved it. Just like loved feeling kind of the wind in my hair and racing and trying to beat the girls in front of me, and just like really loved the feeling of running. Played a bunch of sports growing up though, like soccer, basketball, lacrosse, kind of you name it. My parents put my sister and I in like every sport and sort of allowed us to figure out what we loved best, which was really cool. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity. But running sort of started honestly in cross country and then progressed into the sprints later on.
Was your family, and you mentioned your parents, were they very much involved into sports or practicing at high level?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, my dad was a very elite level athlete. He played a couple of sports in college in Canada, went to Western, and then after that, later on, once he and my mom moved out to California, he took up racing cars, and from a younger age, like lived in Kenya, Australia, rode off-road motorcycles a ton, so had a lot of skills in riding off-road motorcycles when he was, a teenager in Kenya, a teenager in Australia, and then later on in his life, did a bunch of off-road motorcycle races. So the Dakar Rally was one of the first Canadians to complete that.
Nice.
It's like 7,000 miles across the
Yeah.
African desert. One of the world's toughest races in motorsports. So it was really cool to have him as an example of like what it took to complete those really intense endurance races, and then also on the track did the Daytona 24-hour race and won that in, I think it was 2006 or 7. I'd have to confirm that. But yeah, so having like my dad race at a really high level and watching him and having him as an example was really cool. My mom ran track and played tennis in high school, but I would say on the sports side later on, my dad was more at the elite level.
Yeah, and do you think he was also an inspiration, not just in being the best, but the relentlessness it takes to just grind every day? Because he didn't become a racer after a couple of days. It probably took him, and you said he traveled a lot and probably went through lots of lows and a few highs. So yeah, was that something that kind of helped you in your young age, when probably initially when you started running or doing other sport, it was more for fun than anything else? But yeah, did you change that mindset into very competitive stuff quickly?
Yeah, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. It initially started as fun
Yeah.
and getting to kind of shoot hoops in the backyard with my dad and play ping pong against each other and like play lacrosse in the backyard sort of thing as a kid. And then definitely progressed to like, okay, I see that it's possible to get to a really elite level. I want to be the best in whatever sport it is. I like have talked about this before, but like I have a piece of paper that my mom found, and on that paper, I think I wrote it when I was like 10 or 11. It says like the dream is to go to the Olympics in, and then it says soccer and then basketball, and then like in the corner it says like track, like very very tiny in the corner, just as like a backup. So it was kind of funny like looking back of like, okay, I knew that I wanted to like get to the highest level. I didn't know what sport yet. And track sort of took over there, but he was 100% an inspiration, and watching him go through the highs and lows. He had kind of a career ending injury
Okay.
when I was in 7th grade. Just was going over 160 miles an hour through a canyon in the Baja 1000, which is, or sorry, 250 miles across the Mexican desert on a motorcycle. Hit a rock that he didn't see, went over the handlebars and like shattered his knee.
Jeez.
Airlifted out, 11-hour surgery, like you name it. Like, they were kind of telling him he wasn't going to walk again, but seeing him recover from as big of an injury as that was, and mentally sort of, he was already reading books on like learning how to sail, like already wanted to like race and do other things because we lived in the Bay Area. The Bay is an awesome place to sail. So like he was sort of that example of no matter what happens, there's always like another thing that you can kind of pursue and another thing that you can do, and you can continue to like race and find that passion and find those things that you love. So watching him have to overcome as big of an injury as that was for himself and our family was, at a young age, was super inspirational, and just showed me like there's going to be the highs, but there's also going to be those lows that you can continue to work through and move forward.
And so you talk about competitiveness in general. So that's the first time I'll ask that question because I want to see if I'm normal. I cannot somehow participate in anything without being competitive. Yesterday, for my birthday, which was 2 days ago, my girlfriend brought me with friends at a laser game or laser tag, I think, in
Mhm.
English. And I finished second. It was for my birthday. Everybody was so happy, having so much fun. I was like, a small part of me is like disappointed, and it didn't ruin my evening, but it felt like there was something missing because I ended up second. Anyway,
Yeah.
so is that something that you have, and is that something that you had inside you from the beginning?
Yeah, well, first of all, happy birthday. Happy belated birthday. And yeah, 100%, I'm the same as you. Like, I think even now when I was racing at Duke University too, like we would be on track meets and we would all play cards before races and it would just get so heated. Everyone would get so frustrated because everyone wants to win. And
Hmm.
like growing up, my younger sister, Nikki, she's 2 years younger than me, so we were close in age and we competed in everything. And she was 2 years younger, so she was smaller and didn't have as many skills, but she pushed me so much and we pushed each other. And even if it was just like a little small card game too, like we would be pushing each other, kind of yelling at each other, like that sort of thing. So I think you're right. Like I'm the same way. I'm competitive in small things too, but I try and make sure that it's like fun and light. So it's not like too intense because we have the intensity on the track. So
Yeah.
the other games are just for fun, but yeah.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that because actually I don't play cards anymore with my girlfriend, nor tennis, because I flipped the switch very way too often. She's like, no, no more of this with me. So cool. I'm not the only one.
No, definitely
Yeah,
not.
when so you said always a bit competitive, but you remember of a tipping point where probably at 6, 7, 8, whatever it might be, it's still for fun. I mean, you have a child's mindset and you know you discover life in a sense, but do you remember a time where it became kind of your life goal and you're like, the track is my thing, 400 is going to be my thing, and that's what I'm going to chase for the next 20 years potentially.
Yeah, it's a great question. I That time for me was going from my like third year of high school into my last year, so my junior to
Yeah.
senior year in high school. Um, and a big kind of decision maker there was quitting basketball. So I ended up quitting basketball in that third year so that I could focus on track fully going into that last year of high school. And I think having really great coaches and mentors in my coach now, Mark Mueller, was also my coach when I was
Okay.
at that age,
Wow.
which is really cool to have someone who's known me from such a young age. And then I had another coach, George Chen, as well, who really sat me down and helped me understand, okay, if you want to like give your all into this track thing, if you want to my goal was to win the state championships in California. I wanted to make the world junior team that was in Oregon that summer for Team Canada.
Mhm.
They kind of sat me down and said, if you want to do this, let's focus on the process goals. Let's like do your goal ladder. Let's figure out like what do you need to do? What do you need to focus on? What are the little things that you can kind of take control of? And I think from a young age, having them give me the autonomy of what are my goals? How am I going to get there? Meant a lot. And that was kind of the tipping point of like, okay, if I really want to do this, I have to invest the time, put in the work. I already was a hard worker, but having the autonomy and having like these are the little things I can focus on that will get me there. I felt really lucky to have mentors and coaches like that.
Nice. So I love the idea that you mentioned the goal ladder. What does it look
Yeah.
for you? That's one of the thing I read on your website. You said you approach everything, the process, with a gritty and day to day attitude, which I think is huge. And no longer than an hour ago, I was doing an interview for my real job, and it for sales stuff, and like that's where we are, that's where we want to go, 2 times bigger in the span of a year. But all of it comes down to you waking up in the morning and having that small achievement at the end of the day, and the next day the same, and the same, and the same, and the same. So yeah, again, what I said before of parallels between business and sports. But yeah, what's your goal ladder and how did you build it?
Yeah, I mean, my goal ladder has changed every single year, right? So at the
Yeah.
beginning of each season, I sit down with my coach and we go through that goal ladder where at the top there'll be like an outcome goal. So like for this year, it would be the Paris Olympics for me and going to try and win Canadian trials and perform as best as I
Mhm.
can in those stages. And then under that, it would be like performance goals, which maybe is a time thing, right? So like here's the standard, here's the time I want to hit. And then one is maybe like some weightlifting goals or like keeping healthy, whatever. And then under that are all the process goals. And like you said, those process goals are the most important ones. It's like, okay, 8+ hours of sleep a night. It's okay, I'm doing my rehab, prehab like every day or every other day. It's like very time specific, measurable, process oriented goals that, like you said, at the end of the day, I'm know that I'm checking that box. And one of the quotes I really like from John Wooden, the really famous UCLA basketball coach, he always said, like, make each day your masterpiece. And I like to think about that, especially in this Olympic year where it's like the little things add up, like
Hmm.
you said, in business, in whatever it is, making each day your masterpiece as best as you can is going to add up later.
And so, let's say today, what is your let's say process goal, and how you woke up this morning, and what is it you want to have achieved by the end of today in 6 8 hours from now?
Yeah, I love that. Today, one of the things I've been trying to be intentional about, not only for today, but I guess in the coming weeks, has been being on top of mindfulness. So meditation and breathing exercises was super helpful for me leading into the Tokyo Games, when I had a big injury and was coming back from it, just to be able to stay grounded and present and let the kind of worries and thoughts like be able to notice them and then let them go. Almost as if you imagine like a river and a thought comes along the river, you can acknowledge it and then let it go instead of attaching to it and reacting to it. So that's something today, like 20 minutes before this, I did my mindfulness. And then going into practice today, I've was dealing with a bit of an injury earlier in the season and coming back and gaining momentum. So I think today in practice, just like being as present and intentional as I can as well, and just being like grateful for being on the track. And yeah, I think being as present as possible has definitely been my intention for like what a good day would look like right now.
Nice. And so, are these objectives measurable in a sense? You said like mindfulness and all of this, but you end up the day saying, "Oh, yeah, I know I did this well. So even if I didn't run my best time, or if I feel something in my leg or something, that's still a pretty good day, and on to the next, pretty much."
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for sure, like at least with the meditation part, like, I checked that off. I did my 10
Yeah.
minutes of meditation. With the practice, it's a little bit more like intangible, right? Of
Yeah.
like, okay, even if I didn't have a great rep, was I still like present? Was I not worrying about something else? Was I where my feet are, sort of thing? But I think I could still at the end of a practice say, okay, I did feel present. I did feel intentional about that practice and I was really focused. And I think the other small measurable things that I know Miranda Aim was talking about in some of in her podcast with you as well was just like the fueling, the sleep, like the little things, the basic things, like those are measurable too, right? Like I know I got a lot of sleep last night
Hmm.
and I do feel recovered. I know like I'm gonna have a great lunch before my practice, that I'm fueled enough. Like those are the little things that I think I can measure and say, okay, I did those right today.
And was this also something that you had from a very young age, or was it taught by, or did you learn that from experts and no, nutritionists and stuff like that? How did you get to that point of being so organized and so disciplined about your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're very kind for saying so organized and disciplined. I think it goes in waves, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm human. There's times where I definitely am not as organized and disciplined as it sounds. It's something I've learned and I've had to really create like systems in my environment, whether it's like an alarm on my phone that
Yeah.
tells me, okay, make sure I'm eating at this point so I don't just like get caught doing work or get excited about something and then you forget to have a big enough lunch before your training, right? Like you can create those systems around you that give you easier chances to like make the decisions that you need to. But yeah, I would say over time, like in high school and then even into college, and then especially now on the Canadian team, have been working with a nutritionist, Jesselyn, who's out of the West Hub, who's been really helpful with some of those pieces. Like you said, coaches, experts, like my coach, Mark Mueller, who's still my coach, is really invested. We have meetings frequently so that we can kind of talk about these things and really create the buy-in there.
Nice. So getting a bit more technical now,
Yeah.
just because it's a few minutes, not too much. So you're specializing on the 400 meters. What brought you there initially? Is it really about like physical qualities? Is it because that's something you liked more, or is it because I would assume, not knowing exactly, that a 100-meter sprinter versus a 400-meter athlete versus a marathon or 10,000-meter runner, the type of personality is probably also very different. One is very explosive, the other one is more on endurance and stuff like that. So yeah, what is it that made you end up in the 400 meters and just focusing on that?
Yeah, I sometimes joke and say that the 400 chose me
Right.
because I think a lot of us 400-meter athletes, like, it's so much lactic acid. It's the longest sprint. I think there's a lot of us that wish it could be like the 100 or the 200, but my start from a younger age wasn't that good. But once I was up to speed and up to max velocity, I could hold my speed pretty well. And then I also kind of like you said on my website, like I do feel like the 400 is such a gritty like heart event. Like at the end of the race, like who can relax, who can want it, who wants it more. That sort of side of the 4x4 and the 400 are really interesting to me. So I would say like those qualities and personality traits kind of like self-selected to some degree. But I also just I think it's a really rewarding race because when it clicks, it's really cool and you're just gassed by the end of it. You're giving everything you have. So I think it's cool when it clicks and you can have a fast race.
Nice. And what would you say is that one memory you have of a race when it clicked and kind of everything went perfectly? Which race would it be, and yeah, how did it happen?
Yeah, there's a few like that in my career. I think like from on like the younger edge, I guess a turning point race was in college, my senior year at Duke University at the Penn Relays, which is a super big event in the U.S. Thousands of people every year go to the Penn Relays, and we were in the 4x4 final, and I got the baton behind a little bit by a good amount and just like kind of let the brain go and the body just went on autopilot and just like reeled in this girl from like 20 meters away and like got her at the finish line and our whole team won and the girls come on the track and it was one of those like really special feelings of um knowing that I was kind of in that flow state and just like letting the body take over, turning the mind off and just like running with heart so that I could try and get the win for my team. So I would say that was an earlier memory and then obviously later on into Tokyo as well.
Nice.
But
And it's interesting that you mentioned that one race being a team event when track is 90% individual events. You run both. Is there one that you appreciate more than the other? Is there a more fun in a sense in being in a team event because you're part of something and you also have for the highs and the lows you're kind of surrounded by people.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing team sports my whole
Yeah.
life, and so I would say my heart is definitely more like I love the 4x4. I think it's such a fun, exciting
Hmm.
event. Like you said, you're running for the girls next to you, trying to get the baton to them in the best position. I would say that for sure. But of course, like to run on any 4x4, you have to be running fast individually, right? Like we each have to do our individual job. So I think that individual piece is definitely important, and I'm learning to put more and more emphasis on that and be as confident as I am in the individual as I am in the relay. Like I know
Hmm.
I'll give a good relay split. I've done it time and time again. I feel like confident in my ability to like lay it on the line for the girls next to me. Sometimes on the individual side, it can be harder to find that belief, but it's something I've gotten better and better at.
Nice. So talking about relays, you participated in 2020. You mentioned that there's a whole paragraph I think on your website and also various articles that I've been able to read where you mentioned all the struggles leading up to the Olympics that you had after 2016. You lost your dad, that you had injuries, that there was a pandemic, and then this and that, and then you end up at the Olympics with a pretty great result. You finished fourth with the Canadian team. So yeah, can you bring us back? I would say, in a sense, into that period without getting too much into the details, of course. Um, but yeah, how do you keep that? How do you see that light at the end of the tunnel when you have so many shitty stuff happening, and how do you keep that one goal to go to the Olympics, which is probably what was driving you all along?
Yeah, it was a big, couple years, 4 or 5 years of, like you said, like a lot of kind of personal loss with my dad passing and then injury after injury and the global pandemic that shut everything down, like so much uncertainty, I think, during that time. But one of the things that I know so many athletes use this, and my coach told me this over and over again, was the whole like control the controllables, like kind of what we were saying. What can we do day to day to like take a step forward
Hmm.
and continue on like one foot in front of the other, especially at times when I felt like I was sort of drowning. And luckily also had great friends and great community and great family who were helping lift me up at a time when I felt pretty low and missed the calls with my dad before races. Like it was hard to kind of step on the line without feeling like he was there because like we talked about, he was that inspiration for me.
Hmm.
um, so I think going back to that time and especially into the COVID year, community and people, especially during the pandemic, was the biggest spark to help me along with that journey, which I know it was for so many other people too, right? Like we understood that connection is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think you built some sort of a gym outside of a garage or an RV or something. Is that real?
Yeah, we I've since moved, so we're no
Yeah.
longer like in that place, but we built like porch gym, like just on this porch outside. And yeah, would lift out there. I was doing like quad presses sitting on like a kitchen counter, and my coach was like pulling my quads down, like those sort of really creative things that we could kind of do. But that porch gym was so fun because like all of my, a couple of my friends that were in our COVID quarantine
Yeah.
pod, they would come over and we would lift, and I would have people to kind of help push me and figure it out.
Nice. So you end up with a fourth place at the 4x4 relay at the Olympics.
Mhm.
That's the result of 4 years and everything before. So yeah, how does it? How did you see that result? Just going to the Olympics, then the result itself, and then there is that known in a sense post Olympic syndrome of you losing the motivation just because you have another 4 years before the next Olympics. So yeah, can you bring us through how it went for you, the result itself, and then the bouncing back and putting that new target, which is 4 years from now, or 3 years in that case, because of COVID.
Yeah. I think if you ask any of us on that relay and on that team, like we all ran our hearts out and ran the fastest like any Canadian team had run in 30 years, right? Like we almost broke the Canadian record. Like we would have medaled at almost every other Olympics. Like the time we ran was really fast. Everyone was flying. But it's bittersweet to get fourth. Like we're competitors. Like, it's hard. So that result was amazing. And I know all of us are really proud of the performance that we gave, but I think it still stung. And I think there was still frustration or anger, a little bit of sadness around that. But at the same time, it's definitely fuel, I think, for all of us to know that like this Canadian women's 4x4, we have a lot of depth. We're right there. Like there's been so many times at world championships, Olympics,
Mhm.
where we've almost gotten fourth, fifth over and over again to where we're close to that breakthrough. And then I think like even making the team and that result and coming back and having community and friends celebrate, it was definitely like a relief to feel like, okay, we did everything we could. We performed at the highest level. Got a little bit of chance to like celebrate in Canada, but then moving to Austin, Texas, kind of resetting and restarting for that next like Olympic cycle and World Championships that was coming up. Faced a lot more injuries, didn't have a lot of community, was trying to like kind of navigate new circumstances with new training group, new coach, which was amazing and a lot of good learning opportunities, but just wasn't quite the right fit for me. And I think during that time felt those Olympic blues pretty intensely.
Yeah.
um, just yeah, you work your whole life for that one dream to some degree, and I had prepared ahead of time with my sports psych, knowing that the Olympics and the results are never going to bring us joy or happiness.
Hmm.
They're going to bring us momentary joy, momentary happiness, but it fades quickly, right?
Hmm.
So is the process, is the journey, that's the piece that's like going to give us the most joy and the most fulfillment. So even knowing that, I still kind of felt that isolation, especially because it was a COVID games too, so I think that was harder.
And how do you bounce from that and recovering or gaining even more motivation to then, like you said just a few minutes ago, like reaching for Paris and trying to, yeah, just put in another about almost 1,000 days of effort to go to that next big event. You probably have other goals in the meantime, but yeah, it's basically what drives you, right?
Yeah, of course, of course. Like you said, like other goals, like world championships, other major events that definitely are like pathways or parts along the way. But yeah, I think I've been really lucky to have an incredible fiance that I was living with in Austin, and like having him kind of help me also refine my love of track again, and refind the grind and the purpose and the joy in track, and understanding that these goals and these little pieces along the way, like the lows are as much of a part of this journey as the highs. Just like the example with my dad's injury and kind of the injuries that I faced, like just knowing that that's where the most growth happens.
Hmm.
And if we can learn from it, if we can grow in those spaces, then we can be better later on. So I would say like that's been the biggest piece for me is having him, and then also moving back to Durham, like having this kind of community and sense of belonging here has been really great as well for my like track career, and um, being back with a coach that I know really well as well.
Nice. So now we are 5 months away from the Olympics. Where do you stand in your in your chase?
Yeah, we're getting closer. I feel like I'm gaining a lot of momentum. I had a little bit of a calf injury the last like month or so, and so that was challenging and felt like a little bit of one of those setbacks that's like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, this is going to hold me out. But at the same time, like I've been through a lot of injuries before and we've made it to the highest level. So I think just knowing and having confidence in the experience that I have, in the mindset and the wisdom that I've used before to get to this level, I think that's really what I'm relying on and excited to like put in some really good training, start racing now shortly, and just like give it all we can, and we'll see what happens. You know, that's all you can do. Prepare as best as you can, race as hard as you can, and then let the cards fall where they may, because that's just sport. You know, that's all you can do.
And do you have qualifying events coming, or did you qualify already? What's the status right now?
Yeah, yeah. Our Olympic trials for track and field are in Montreal, from I think June 27th to 30th, I
Ooh,
want to say,
I'm gonna note
are the
now.
dates.
In
Yeah,
Montreal? Where in
exactly.
Montreal? Where about?
Oh, I wish I could tell you. I don't know off the
Okay,
top of my head.
June
But yeah, if you just look
27th.
up, I think it's 27th, yeah, or maybe 26th. But if you just look up Athletics Canada, it'll be on their website in terms of where our Olympic trials are. So definitely come out and support anyone
Yeah.
who's listening, or obviously would love to have you there. It'll be a great time. So that's our trials. In order to qualify, winner, if you win and you have the standard or you're in the ranking quota, then you go. Other than that, it's sort of up to like committee and if you have the ranking quota or the standard. So basically, they've changed it where there's a time standard that you have to hit.
Hmm.
If you hit that time standard and you go to Olympic trials and you win, then you're good to go. There's another kind of avenue where instead of a time standard, there's a world ranking system
Okay.
where every race that I go to has a world ranking and gives me a points, and then it contributes to my world ranking where like at the end the top 48 women in that ranking window would go if they get top 3 at their national championships or Olympic trials. So kind of a complicated system,
How
but
yeah,
it
how
works.
easy. How
Yeah,
simple and
yeah,
clear.
very simple.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I also read that you are an athlete mental health advocate, which goes back to what you said at the beginning. But yeah, how does that? Yeah, how do you do that? And do you work with other athletes, younger, or maybe even not yet elite athlete people that are on their way up?
Yeah, exactly. I do a lot of mentorship. So that's been the biggest way that I've been kind of an advocate in that mental health space. So through a company called Voice in Sport, I provide mentorship, whether it's one on one or to teams, to younger girls. So it's ages 13 to 23. And we hop on the call. We talk about everything from training while you're menstruating to nerves before races to like very women athlete specific issues as well, just because in the sports world, sports media, there's not a lot of coverage of women in general. So
Hmm.
adding kind of visibility, being able to talk about things that are challenging to talk about with male coaches, that sort of piece of it. So the mentorship side has been something I'm really passionate about, and have been working for multiple years as a mentor.
Nice. Is that something that you would think of exploring post career once you start competing at the highest level, or would you, when you decide that running is over, would you completely change gears and go somewhere else?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think I definitely know that I want to stay in sport to some capacity, whether that's like on the sport business side or whether that is in like a coaching capacity or sports psychology. I'm really interested in that. So I'm not 100% sure right now. Uh, but I do have like a graduate degree, a master's in management studies, and growing up in Silicon Valley, there's always a lot of like really interesting startups, and the whole business world and corporate side is really interesting to me. So if I could maybe dip my toe into that, but on the sports side, I think that's a goal of mine later on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, One thing that I'd like to discuss, if you're okay with it, is more like the financials. So there's a quote, I don't know if it's from you or not, which is also on their website, that says, "Go for gold, win the broke," or something like that. Which I find pretty clear. It seems like it's something a bit taboo in the world of sport, especially in the non NHL, NFL type of sport, more like Olympic sports, where athletes struggle financially and sometimes have to spend half of their awake time finding ways to make a living, and then the rest just trying to be the best at their sport. So, and you've also, so you have a donation page on your website where you can
Mhm.
split and explain the break down your expenses, especially on an important year like this year. Yeah, can you explain how it works for you, and maybe also clarify for people who don't really know that the people they see on TV at the Olympics don't necessarily have thousands of bucks floating every single day, and that they have to go and get their money to be able to compete at the highest level.
Definitely, yeah, that quote that you're referring to is from, yeah, an article, I forget what website posted it, but I think it's from a couple years back, that talks about, like, you can win a gold medal and still be broke because it took so much money for you to get to that point of the Olympics, and especially in some of the sports, like track and field or the sports that don't necessarily have, like, a big league supporting them, like the NFL or not NFL because NFL is not in the Olympics, but, like, NBA, for example, for basketball or even, like, golf, tennis that have these kind of leagues that are supporting the athletes because track is so individualized within the world athletics space. And there's no transparency of contracts. You don't really know what other athletes are making as much
Yeah.
unless it's at the high level. Then you maybe have an idea of like the multi-million dollar contracts. But for most of us, at least on like the athletes that I know in the sprints, jumps, throws, that are still top in the world don't have contracts. Like I haven't had a contract my entire career
Mhm.
with like a Nike or an Adidas. But I have worked and kind of hustled to find smaller contracts and smaller partnerships with massage therapy places. There's a place around the corner called Endurance Collective that I get my therapy from in exchange for content. So I think there's, like you said, it's a hustle, it's a grind to be able to afford this. And with some like donations and some partnerships, I've been able to figure it out. We also get funding from the Canadian government based on like your performance each year. You can apply for Canadian carding, is what they call it. So you get carding based on your performance, and that helps us also live and be able to afford to train. So it's like 10 different avenues that you're
Mhm.
sort of grabbing pieces from, whether it's like I coach on the side, I mentor, I do my own brand and partnerships, there's Canadian funding, there's like 10 things that I'm trying to grab um, to be able to afford to do this.
It's crazy, and it blows my mind that chicken and egg type of problem where you have funding if you have result. Yeah, but in order to get result, I should get some funding so I don't have to spend time, and then it kind of goes back and forth, and you end up, yeah, just struggling. And yeah, if you have one good result that allows you to get funding, then it gets easier. But you have to find that click at some point. So, do you feel that it's something that you or other athlete might slow you down in your career, in the sense that if you were able to focus 100% of your awake time on the sport itself without struggling or thinking or trying stuff, you could go further and get better results if there was if there were better solutions.
100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think if we could focus 100% on the recovery side, on the nutrition, on all the small things during our day, instead of, yeah, being pulled in a couple, multiple different directions or the side hustles or even working full time jobs like a lot of us do as well, um, it would be easier and it would be better to have those performances and those resources as well. But at the same time, I will say, like, at least for an athlete like myself, I'm not speaking for anyone
Hmm.
else, it is helpful to have something outside of track, at least for me. I've always loved school. I've always loved learning. I've always loved kind of having something else. So I think like these other side hustles, jobs, opportunities are interesting to me and have allowed me to sort of like be an entrepreneur in my own space and like find little ways that I can have partnerships and make money and learn. So I think there's a piece of it that also I've learned a lot through this process and have enjoyed pieces of it. Sure, there's times where it's a lot and I wish I could focus fully on training, but I also enjoy it
Yeah.
too. So I think there's a mix for depending on the athlete, of
No,
course.
and I love what you said, that side gigs, and actually being here right now talking to you is my side gig. But one thing that I find very interesting and important is
Yeah.
that those side gigs shouldn't be about getting more money. I mean, when I
Mm.
press stop here and I upload the content, I'll be back and work for like another 8 hours before my day is over, probably. And doing the podcast is kind of my way of moving away from this, from that stress, and that where I have expectations. Here, not that I don't have expectations, but at least you do it for free. It's fun. It empties your mind. But I'm not
Yeah.
trying to get money. If you, like you said, if you want to do a bit of stuff, mentoring, but it shouldn't be driven by, oh, I should make money so that I can then have fun and do my and practice. So it's kind of a fine balance that, yeah, it's important to move away from your main goal and your main focus, but at the same
Mhm.
time it shouldn't be a side gig which is only about surviving
Yeah.
or make ends meet.
Another stress.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%. It shouldn't be like an added stressor to make money or to be able to survive. Like you're completely right. It's Yeah, it's a lot. It's a challenging reality that I think, to your point, when people see on TV and like in the media, when people are at the highest level at the Olympics, I remember growing up, they always just like seemed like
Yeah.
superheroes and like they have it all together and they're paid a lot and they're, doing everything perfectly.
Yeah.
And that's just not the reality. Like most of us can barely afford to do it, or are struggling to, or are figuring out very creative ways to do it, and are just normal people to some degree. Of course, there's like habits and there's things and there's discipline and grit that goes into it, but at the end of the day, like we're not all the superheroes that I think everyone puts in the media.
Well,
So
I think you are in the sense. Again, I'm putting forward that parallel between business and sports, but I think athletes that I'll say don't make money or almost no money, but still have that grit of waking up and practicing for like spending 10 hours in the pool or on the track every day versus finding rockstar employees that, yes, spend 12 hours a day in the office, but at the end of the day, they're paid for it. They are, sorry, paid for it. So
yeah.
there's even more of a superhero stuff on the side of athletes who are not necessarily just driven by grit and by, chasing that one goal versus, superstar employees that are, yeah, maybe chasing a goal to get better and get, like become VP or whatever, but at the same time they'll end
Mhm.
up with a good decent salary and they'll still be able to live. So anyway, you're the superhero here.
You're right. Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate that. It's true. I definitely see your point. They're compensated for the time that they're giving.
Exactly.
So you're right.
And
You're so
even if you
right.
have a shitty day and you don't make the sales that you were supposed to make, at the end of the day, you'll still make your, living salary. So anyway, I don't yet have the means to change that, but hopefully someday, that's where I could help. We'll see.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's progress, and I think hopefully there's more and more transparency in like contracts and in when other athletes are getting paid, and in media dollars going towards like smaller athletes or whatever it is, right? I think there's potential for a lot of growth, and it's starting to happen, especially on the women's sports side. It's been cool to see all the growth, even with like the new league starting, the PWHL. Like it's been so cool to see the traction around the women's pro hockey league starting, and just like the visibility of like more women athletes. So that's been also something I've really enjoyed seeing as well from the
Nice.
sponsorship like dollar side.
Yeah. If you had 30-second with 10-year-old yourself, and you tell her something or give her an advice and she gives you an advice, what would they be?
Ooh, if I could tell her and she could tell me. Okay. If I could tell her, I would say to like not take herself too seriously. I definitely was a kid who loved to have fun and loved to compete, but there were times where I put so much pressure on myself too,
Hmm.
where yeah, just keep enjoying it. You're going to be okay. You're going to get through the lows and the highs are going to be great. So that's what I would say. Just keep enjoying it. You're going to be okay.
Nice.
Um and then the reverse, what she could tell me is that she's really proud of me. I think yeah, I hope that I've made my younger self proud and that it's been a crazy journey. And I think I would tell my younger self would also tell me to like keep being present and keep enjoying it.
Hmm.
And we do this because we love it, like you said, not because I'm making a lot of money from it. So yeah, I would say
That's
that would be what she would say.
Yeah, it's a good advice, and that's one that not so long ago. Well, actually, the episode that was released today is with a football player, Richie Sindani, and he told me like, if I remember what I was thinking when I was 8 years old, the 8-year-old kid will be like crazy about what I've achieved or what he has achieved.
Yeah.
But today I'm like, oh, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. I want to do this differently. I'm like, always when you think about the 8-year-old yourself, it's like, it's pretty good. So yeah, anything about
Yeah.
it is cherry on the cake. And this is not on the again the day to day grind. It's not easy to always think about it and realize that we've come a long way already.
Yeah, I appreciate the question because you're right. It gives so much perspective. Like our younger selves would be really proud. Like I'm sure your younger self would be like, "This is so cool
Yeah,
to be able to get do a passion like you're doing, and then have an amazing job and everything that you're
yeah.
doing as well." So it's really cool.
Like, yeah, my actually 1 year old 1 year ago self would be pretty stoked about talking to you or talking to so many different cool athletes. So
Love.
if you had one person in mind that you know of, an athlete that you think has a good story to tell that could come on the podcast, who would you think? Who would you say that person is?
Ooh,
Track or not track,
um,
whoever.
track, yeah, etc. Two people come to mind. Two friends on the Paralympic side, but Nate Reach. I don't know if you've interviewed him.
Nope.
He is an Olympic champion, world champion. He's incredible in the 1500 meters. He has an amazing story, just in terms of like resilience and overcoming all that he has, but also just on the mental side and how hard he works, and then also his balance outside of track. Like he's just loves people, loves connection, loves experiences and
Mhm.
adventure. And I think, like we've talked about, there's so much more to life than track. So, and then Marissa Papa Constantino, another track para athlete as well, a Paralympic medalist, and has done just an incredible job building her brand as well. Like she's a true entrepreneur, like has done such an amazing job in terms of being a voice for the Paralympic movement. And then also just building her brand as who she is and very authentically herself. She's awesome. So I would say like both of them would be great people to talk to.
Wonderful. I'll try to reach out. I didn't catch the family name of the second person.
I can spell it for you,
Uh,
Papa Constantino. It's a longer one.
yes,
Yeah,
with Marissa and Paralympics. I hope I'll find her.
yes, yeah, I can. I'll email it to you. Yeah,
Wonderful.
she has a longer
Um,
last name.
are you active on social media, and yeah, are you trying to kind of build a personal brand? And where should people follow you?
Yeah, I am. I took a little break, which was good. The last couple of weeks, I think it's been good to have like, breaks here and there,
Yeah.
because I think as all of us, we are on it sometimes too much. But I am building my brand. It's been fun to have some partnerships on social media. But my Instagram is Maddy Priceless, Maddy, and then last name Price, Pricelles, Priceless. Also on TikTok at Maddy Priceless, the same for both. Yeah, try me there. And then my website, maddyprice.net as well, just if you want to learn
Perfect.
a little bit more, hear a little more about my story. But it's been cool
You
to
have a
share
lot
it
of
on
stuff
here.
actually on the website, which is not so frequent. So yeah, very interesting. Lots of videos and stuff.
Thanks.
So really nice.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Last question, and now I finally can show it. This is the Wall of Fame, or whatever the name. Is there anything that you think of that you might have in a drawer or something from your career that you think you could send over with a quick signature on it?
For sure. Let me take a think on that. I either because I that white shirt I also still have, so I'm definitely
Oh,
not going to
this
send
one
the
here.
same one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there are a
But I have.
few
I'll
details.
give you a different one. So either a shirt like that, or like an old like a pair of spikes that I've worn in the
Oh,
past too that I think I still have. So I'll take a look and see what I have and can shoot you an email. So I would love to add something onto the wall.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Maddie. Any last word before we wrap this up?
No, I think this has been amazing. Thanks for shedding light on the behind the scenes and the perspective. It's always awesome to be able to like reflect and share on our journeys as athletes outside of sport. And yeah, really grateful for what you're doing. So keep doing it.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I'll see you on the 27th ish of June in Montreal, and cheer for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait to see you then.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.